Welcome, everybody, to the Destiny Dugout. I'm your host, Cruz, member of the three-time World's First Team from Elysium, and this is what we've got going on this episode. Hopefully you enjoy listening, and let us know what you think in the comment section. Now, without further ado, let's get this thing started.
Throughout the boss fight, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, all of that in combination with itself, it just tells me that the boss encounter was shoehorned, and then there was supposed to be a Scion where we had third encounter, and that planet encounter, we weren't supposed to fight the Scion there, I don't think. I mean, because that encounter honestly seems a little bit more like a final boss encounter than the final boss.
I agree. Maybe not to like the complexity, but like that's a pretty important area. You know, that's like the area where we first saw the witness in a cutscene, and then all of a sudden we're just fighting some random Cabal bro in there, right? It just seems like a little misplaced.
I would have been okay with honestly us fighting the witness, and then we get past his final stand, but he doesn't die. He just goes. He basically just like egos us and goes like,
I think
I don't have
him
time
backing
for this,
up like through the portal would actually be kind of neat.
Yeah, like he just goes, I don't have time for this, and then just like leaves, and then the raid ends, right?
Even I actually was thinking that right there, or maybe we do kill him, or like I don't know, we kill him in one reality in that room is a great ending to a story. Like that's like a pretty cool area for your final Lightfall, end of the Light and Dark saga. You kill the witness in the story campaign, but you don't actually, like, you got to really defeat the darkness. You kind of have to go to, similar to like what Oryx is, we kind of have to go to like his realm.
Yeah.
Because that's where you can like truly defeat the embodiment of him. Definitely
I like
feels a little misplaced, but I also think like, yeah, I don't know if it's like, I was thinking the other day, but also like just now again, with the planets and all that stuff, I think that room is cool enough to be a final boss area, but I don't think it's grand enough, if that makes sense. I feel like final boss arenas, like Rolks for example, they're so much visually outside of where you're fighting that sort of sets the stage for the final boss like area.
Yeah.
You know, I think like King's Fall, with you being up there in space, you see Saturn in the background, works really well. Vogue originally with, you know, just this massive glass like thing in the background, like was so much different than the rest of the raid. Even for Wrath, you dive into this dark pit and you just awaken this Siva-fied Archon priest. Crota, you were basically at his like altar with like the what's the thing, the oversoul behind him, and it's like, oh my gosh, and he gets summoned and appears. It's like, oh my god, talk about like an entrance. All of these, I know like a lot of those were D1 references, but all of those felt really like there's a lot of weight to the intro and the area. You felt like, oh my god, this is what we're here for. And I don't know if that room, maybe if like the witness walked through like that like black waterfall thing, maybe that would have made sense in terms of like an impact. I just feel like the room was too contained to be like a final boss in a raid at least. Yeah, because even Nezarec, you know, you got the Traveler in the background and everything. Like it looks pretty cool. I'm not necessarily a fan of like the whole like engagement environment like you play through, but like skybox wise, I think it's cool enough.
To me, it's just that planet room feels like a final room. Like, okay, imagine, you know where Nezarec comes out, right? That big, what's that big totem thing? Is that the thing that Rolk had too? That Nezarec breaks out of, right?
I mean, kinda. So like Rolk had the upended below him, which was this like nuclear device almost. I think Rolk's was literally just his little tomb, like his coffin, and he shatters out of it when he's fully remade.
Yeah. So Nezarec, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Nezarec.
So just take that and just imagine it posted up like where the boss in the planet room spawns, like back in that platform, right? And just imagine it like floating back there, and you know that's Nezarec. Now imagine that encounter. You're fighting some kind of form of the witness, right? Obviously, you're not going to fight some Cali-sized person, but like the witness takes some shape. He's fighting you. You're going through the encounter. You know, the witness is this all-powerful being, and you know you have to control the cosmos and the planets to get the damage right. You get to final stand. The witness goes like he essentially like does some kind of speech or says something, and he backs up, and then he activates Nezarec right there, and literally like breaks him out of the casing. And final stand, you fight Nezarec
Mm-hmm.
in tormented Nezarec just in final stand right there. Like he comes at you like full fighting you. You know, to me, that would have been like top tier right there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because it sort of makes lore like we're not gonna kill the witness for a while. The witness is gonna keep being this thing because he's some all powerful being. They're just like we don't have what it takes, right? Um, but I think we needed to sort of face him in this, and then right before you fight the witness, we were supposed to fight the Scion, and the Scion makes sense because in the first encounter, you are literally killing Scions to unlock the buffs, those orbs.
Yeah.
That mechanic, you don't see it anywhere else. The literally
It's
opening encounter, gone.
the whole connection, I feel like, through the raid didn't make much sense because in the planet encounter, you never have that
Uh-huh.
alignment back in
All
again
that's
either.
gone.
It's
That's why.
just
That's
it
why I'm
literally
saying
you
it
learn
should
it
have
in
been
one
final.
encounter and then that's it.
Yeah,
Because usually
because
builds, but
yeah,
Bungie raids always build
100%.
from one mechanic, then they kind of integrate another, then maybe the next time they integrate two of them, and then in the end you've got all three. DSC I think is a great example by you start with scanner and operator, and they're simplified roles. It's like operator, you interact with these nodes, and scanner,
Mhm.
you see the right ones. Very simple to start with. Then the next time, operator does the same things, but now he's got to interact with the orb of Atrax, right? And that's kind of like the new thing. And then third encounter, Descent, they say, hey, suppressor, now you have to stun the boss to spawn the bombs that you then have to bank. So now you've got the three things going on. And
Yeah,
then final boss is just integrating a boss in that environment. It's the same three mechanics, but now you also have a boss to deal with, which is that
yeah.
fourth element. A
Which
lot
which
of
tell
good progression, I think.
yeah, which tells me there is definitely some merit to what you said originally. Um, I can't join you by the way. I don't
Yeah,
know why.
I couldn't either. I reset my game.
I'll restart mine. Um,
I might just close my Steam.
what's it called? Like it tells me like that theory of it kind of being yoinked from a different raid. Like it's something that I don't know if we've ever seen or had in game. Was that timer buff similar to like the Terrible bar? Like that's a new system that they've put in a raid, to my
Mm-hmm.
knowledge. Like that's the first time it's ever been there. You have this buff called Planetary Shift, and spoilers.
Yeah,
Are we recording?
yeah, we're recording.
Of course we are.
We're just passively
I had a feeling,
talking.
but
Yeah,
um
we'll get into it eventually. We're still trying to play the game.
yeah. But basically, like you move these planets and you grab one another, and then there's this thing in the center that activates it. And again, that little darkness little button doesn't show up anywhere else in the raid. That is the only place that button shows up in the whole raid,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you saw it through the campaign, which is normal. You see it in pyramid ships, and you would think, oh, you're in a pyramid ship, so you should see more of these buttons. Nope, no buttons, just there, right? So it's like there is some merit to the feeling like it's just yoinked out of nowhere. And I actually think that when they started it, they had the Scion in mind, right? They probably made the Scion, um, and which is why they made the first encounter. Like they had a plan. They made the first encounter and they locked the things behind the Scion spawning, and also they gave that wipe timer, and you had to kill the tormentors to keep resetting it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then past that, you get into the second encounter, which is what, Scission? Is that Scission?
I think so.
So Scission is the one where you just connect the things really fast and just kill the yellow bars with the buff. That's it. And that was the first time. That's essentially the first time you see a crown mechanic where you need the buff to kill something, right?
Yep.
Which also wouldn't be surprised if you can just track them off the map. Haven't tried. And which again doesn't entirely connect to the first encounter besides the seeds. Then you get to the planet encounter, and it's an entirely different beast. I don't think there's a single thing in that encounter that is anywhere else in the raid. Not a single thing. And then you get to final boss, and final boss is literally just connect the seeds like you did in the jumping puzzle, right? And in the jumping puzzle, to explain it, there's this big like thing off in the distance that keeps pulsating this big wave, this darkness wave, and if you don't have it's like the refuge or something, like the darkness refuge buff throughout the jumping puzzle, you just die, right? The same thing happens during final boss, and that's it. You don't see scions. There's no ads you have to kill with a buff. You just have to basically run around kiting a tormentor and get one shot by his abyssal cleave, and that's it.
Yeah, I know. Like the whole experience felt pretty segmented. All right, it's like, does any of it really like flow together? Like not that much, to be honest. You know, that's what kind of I think sucks about the experience. Yeah, you could join.
Yeah, I heard to restart my game apparently.
Yeah, I don't know. It's this is all sort of what we're talking about here. And how it started was I just asked the question, you know, are the rumors about it being one thing, and you know, like a dungeon, let's say, and then third encounter was just yoinked from something else, and did they just turned it into a raid? Because at the end of the day, I think we can all kind of agree that Lightfall does feel a little, I'll say, unpolished. Maybe it was rushed to certain degrees, because I think visually, like, they nailed it, right? It's no worse than any other raid we've ever had. I think to be honest, visually it's one of the best we've had. I even think like on Niamuna, it's a pretty cool location, albeit kind of like Witch Queen, a little empty. Like, I don't really know what the whole deal of going back there is. So there's aspects to like Bungie's design team where I think they really did an awesome job. And then there's aspects of like raid design or a story integration, and it's just like, did they know what they were really doing, or did they just kind of like have an overall theme? Everyone else was doing their job, and then they're like, okay, you know what? We're actually gonna have to change this up. And they quickly were like, okay, da 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 da. And you know what this really reminds me of?
What?
Like Halo 2. Where they have these ambitions of what they want to do, and they feel like they can't execute it by the time certain deadlines come. And then they make the executive call to say, we need to delay it, which in their case was basically finish the story in Halo 3 and put out the best product we can with what we can do, like with the time available. And ultimately, like, it just seems to line up really well. And I don't want it to be the case, but I think it's kind of true.
Yeah. And you said it earlier, right? Like Lightfall, I think overall, right now, you know, with the raid launching, and that's kind of the big selling point of it all. I think sits at honestly, like a solid 7.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like, that's
7,
not bad.
6.5 at the worst. I mean, which isn't terrible. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's terrible at all.
There's a lot of aspects to what they've brought with like the overhaul to a lot of systems and design that are really good. Yeah. But there's also many where they fall flat. Yeah, Strand's one of the, you know, the few highlights. You know, I think I love Strand. The whole design is
Yeah,
great.
I
I
wasn't
think there's
sold at
aspects that
first.
they need to improve on, right? I don't necessarily think like maybe the grapple blade needs a little bit more tuning to actually be viable in endgame stuff. But outside that, I think it's pretty damn well designed
Yeah,
subclass.
I mean, I wasn't convinced until they gave us all the fragments, and I mean, I don't. If they didn't give us all the fragments, this would have been an awful launch for Strand. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I mean the
'Cause,
fragments really help round out.
yeah, playing this without the fragments was not great. But overall, I think it's not bad. You know, I think it was better than Beyond Light. I would say
Yeah, I mean,
definitely better than Shadowkeep. I think almost everything is better than Shadowkeep.
yeah, no, Shadowkeep just that was another example of like, man, what happened? It felt so empty. Like they weren't ready
Yeah.
for the Light and Dark saga yet. But they're like, okay, well, we have to tease what it's going to be, so we'll just, we'll just throw this in here.
And I was gonna say, I was thinking earlier, like as you were talking, like I don't know if you ever like grew up with like Legos as a kid.
Oh,
Right?
I love Legos. Yeah, big
Legos
Lego
are
kid.
amazing, right? Now, remember, you would want to build something, but you already had something built, and let's say you didn't have a whole lot of Legos, right? So you had to kind of steal from some other stuff you built.
Yeah, piece it together.
So that's what I immediately thought of with this is at some point Lightfall was a complete expansion and it had things stolen from it and then replaced with other things that maybe might not fit perfectly, right? And had things added to it that probably weren't supposed to be there. And there's the theory that Strand wasn't even supposed to be here with Lightfall.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, you talk about like the whole design of like the threads and stuff like that. Well, I mean, we literally have a buff in one of the missions in Savithin's, like final mission where it's like a thread cutter, and it's like, okay, maybe that was kind of the design where you kind of learn to see, even in like the like the deep side stuff, it's like you kind of see more than what's there with Strand. They're like, oh, we can't do that, we don't have Strand ready, and we gotta, like, we'll just throw in another buff and you just interact and get the deep sight. I don't know, a lot of it makes sense. I don't necessarily want to could dive into conspiracies, but like,
It's just,
one day it's gonna come out and it's gonna be interesting to see what it turns out to be.
I think too many things are kind of lining up a little too conveniently.
That's the way I feel, where it's like, yeah, too much. It's just convenient, It's like, oh, that lines up with this. The whole design of the raid being so similar to Spire of the Watcher. It's like, oh yeah, I don't. I think that makes sense.
And that's why I think that something happened with the third and final encounter, right? And because you look at the scions, right? The seeds is like the core, right? And that's fine. The seeds is a core, but then you have the scions that block it. All right, so that's part of it. And then you have the big guys, the centurions that can only be killed while you have the certain buff of the different color of the different side.
Yeah, during second, right?
Yeah, which also adds another part to the mechanic. So then, logically, third encounter should be a small culmination of that, plus maybe another, or it should just be a culmination, and then final should just be a harder culmination.
Right, where you kind of have like the same thing as like DSC, where you have like the basically everything together, but then you throw in the boss in the final bit.
Yeah, and like Spire of Stars, and
yep,
like almost every sort of raid layer style we've had. I mean, even Goss.
Yeah, and to be honest, that's one thing like the raid layers were really good at, is kind of like slowly developing one mechanic to be more complex. It's like one thing about the full raids is that they kind of have that extra one thing near the end that makes it, a fully unique experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just think that after those first two, they pulled that planet encounter kind of out of nowhere. Like it almost feels like part of a playtest. I'm gonna be honest. Like that planetary shift buff style in a raid has never been done before, to my knowledge. Like there's no buff that has a sort of timer like bar,
Yeah, it's like
right?
you
And
got normally it's just kind of like there. It's just like you have 10 seconds and you kind of have to figure out how long you have. This is literally displayed how much time you have.
yeah, and it's just I don't know. I feel like it's really hard to ignore that. And then final boss, it just felt like fighting a really big reskin tormentor.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, do tormentors normally teleport?
No, that's the added thing Nezarek has.
Yeah, like he teleports and he throws out these massive abyssal cleaves. I think
Yeah.
that's it.
I think like the booping stuff that he does where he lifts up the players, or yeah,
Yeah,
basically like the teleport slam that he has. Those are the two unique things that he does versus Tormented. But outside of that, I mean, and even with that, those are just kind of like modified versions of what we already have on Tormentors.
yeah. I also think the breaking his shoulder to see his sheen is it's kind of backwards. I don't know. This might be kind of a hot take here, but I think you should have had to like one person pops his shoulder, like pops his belly and gets the hatred and it tells you what color he is, right? Like that
Yeah.
one person gets it and they tell you, right? Um and when you pop his shoulders is when he jumps down and then he, starts fighting you, right? And that the pop, and then you know how he does that big booping thing, like you said.
Yeah.
That's how you stop that, is by popping his shoulders. Like that's kind
Yeah.
of what makes sense to me.
I mean, yeah, I think that works. Like that's just an example of something that maybe maybe could have been done that they didn't do. I agree though. Like that whole like, it just doesn't seem very intuitive. Even just like the size of how it's represented. Like he's got this massive play space behind him, where maybe just like his tomb glows a certain color when you have his gaze, and it's like, oh, I see a light gaze, or I see a light tomb. When I have the gaze, we should probably get like the light buff. Like maybe that's
Yeah,
what pulses. It's just
yeah.
like that whole aspect of it is so visually cluttered. It's just
Mhm.
like so difficult to really understand.
I mean, in essence, it kind of makes sense to like see someone's true like air quote form or true like colors when you witness their hatred or something, right? You can make some kind of like lore reference, I bet,
Uh-huh.
and just be like, well, by having his hatred, you fully see, what he's about to do.
Yeah,
So
what his intentions are. It's like,
yeah,
I don't know, you can kind of tie it together. There's something there.
hmm, absolutely.
That's one thing during the day one, which I think we can transition to, is like what like I, for example, with my squad had a really tough time figuring out. We were so focused on actually trying to do the mechanic instead of what maybe we should have done, and something I brought up during it, like half jokingly but half serious, is like completely avoiding that mechanic because it was just so difficult to try to actually understand. And it's like, well, why would we do that when we could literally just skip it? Like, why don't we just skip it with eager, avoid the mechanic, and just get to damage, right?
Yep, and that should, you know, uh, I'm sure people listening won't agree, but that should definitely not be a thing in any day one raid ever. I think
I
that
mean,
you should
even damage wise, you shouldn't be able to run
a
an eager
sword,
sword
like
unless it's like, yeah, like Lament, I think is the only type of sword that you should
yeah,
really be able to run during a boss phase and be able to survive with damage.
yeah. You shouldn't have two people who have effectively completely biffed loadouts, you know, be completely fine just because those are the loadouts they're doing just for the mechanic. Like that to me is just, it's imbalance. That already tells you more than you need to know. You know.
Um, yeah, and I think if I had to start out with how like the experience went right away, definitely felt easy to deal with the enemies. Like I think right away having So for my group, right away, Moople and I were just kind of the people who started working with the buff, the Field of Light thing, and sort of learned that. So I don't necessarily have like what it was like, you know, fighting the Tormentors that much, but to be honest, the fact that we didn't have to even think about the Tormentors and the rest of the team is just handling them is probably an example of how there really wasn't much threat to it. You know, it's like when two people
absolutely.
are just izzying and one person's div, it's just like, okay, they're dead. Tormentors are dead. Like in a day one, just bam, dead. It's like, and these are like boss level Tormentors. These are supposed to be like major threats. Kind of plays into the whole maybe contest wasn't even active type thing, because everything just seems to have way too little health.
Yeah,
At least
or
our
just
experience.
their ability to scale enemies with power maybe was altered. Like there's a scaling issue there, maybe, you know, because obviously right now we're like blasting to the raid because we're just, you know, obviously over leveled, most of us.
Mhm.
But even while 20 under, it's just the only things that felt threatening were the one shots from the abyssal cleaves.
For sure. I think Nezarek with his like just tormentor attacks essentially were the thing that were killing people. At least in my group, I should say. Because we were on different teams, so we had different experiences.
Yeah. And I mean, we were lucky. We had Lunar, our seventh man, who, when we got to boss, he just said, you know, look, there is a mechanic here. No one knows how it works. Just do it fast, and you don't have to do it. And we were like confused at first, and he's like, yeah, because Rytown, you know, finished like second or third or something. And he said, yeah, that's what Rytown did. They just did it really fast, and that was Obama Gaming's team.
Mm-hmm.
They just did it really fast and just completely avoided it altogether. And I was just, when he told me that, I was like, all right, sure.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that, I mean, it was even capable of doing that. Part
Yeah.
of the reason where I also feel like it's like, man, this was a day one experience. Like this was a raid, and we're just skipping mechanics because we can. Like that
Yeah,
leaves
we
such a
just ego
sour
it.
taste in our mouth, and it's like it kind of just adds in with the whole general ease of the whole entire raid and the yeah. I mean, it was just incredibly simple. Like, you know, it's just kind of like figuring out one thing and then executing that thing. In the final boss, it was really just coming down to have two people that are comfortable just zooming through. Everyone else just make things as safe as possible, and you'll get to damage. And you will kill with just 4 people doing damage on a day one environment where nobody really knows what they're doing.
Yeah. I mean, I think to me, the optimal like setup should be in a day one. Most players should be able to do a little bit above a fourth, right? With unoptimal DPS. And then optimal, you hit a third, right? Like that's the way, to me, that says that we're balanced. Like everything is sort of balanced.
Mm-hmm.
Because then like teams like ours, we're probably going to push closer to that third, which gets us more leeway. Whereas everyone else, you just got to do the fourth, and you do the fourth, you do that 4 times, you get a kill. Done.
Yeah, and that's where I like, you know, having 4 phases versus if a boss is only 3 phases, then that damage or health pool has to be scaled so much lower. Because you have to count for, you know, suboptimal situations to still be able to get through. So if you're optimal, you're pushing that 50%. And it's like, that maybe moves a little too quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I mean, even I almost think that they could have, the mechanic that they probably could have or should have done. I mean, we could probably theorize all day, but just being able to stand on that plate, and Nezarek just doesn't do anything to you. He is lost. They
Yeah, I
actually
know.
somehow made a tormentor that just cannot climb these awkward plates. And then again, that just goes to show like there was something off. Like it's just, I don't know, in every facet of the game, to find a spot like that where the boss just like basically can't hit you and you're literally unkillable is very rare. Like there's like the boss either is full stunned and you're just DPSing away like an Argo scenario, or you
Yeah.
know, um, Shirochiv, and
And when
or
Tanic sits up there,
yeah, or you have to find some way to deal with the fact that the boss is fighting back during damage, and that'd be like Rolk, um, Morgeth even,
Yep.
um, and you got to like account for that's part of the fight.
Yeah,
And in
that's
this
one
one,
thing
you
like
just
early on
stand
about
on plate.
Morgeth, which
That's
was
it.
kind of neat because you like day one, those balls would do so much damage. If you did not focus on them, if you didn't have a big banner shield or somebody with like sweet business unironically just literally constantly killing those things, like your team would die during damage. And that's like a way to, have more of a dynamic situation in a team environment, right? Where you have different roles. But like you're saying with Nezarek, he's supposed to be one of those bosses where you kind of have to think about what he's doing and maybe take that into account. And to be honest, maybe that's what Bungie thought people were going to be doing, and that's why the health pool is so low. But then you just stand on the plate and he has no idea what to do. He just jumps and slams down a million times and doesn't do anything, or runs into a wall. And yeah, that's like not really much of an experience. It's just like,
I mean, the
you have
hardest
this,
part about Nezarek is just the fact that he teleports.
literally, that's what
And
makes
you have to
damage
stop
weird.
damage. Yeah, that's the hardest part.
It's like, oh, he's teleporting. Where is he? Okay, he slammed left. All right, start shooting rockets again.
Yeah, like
That's it.
there's some kind of disconnect there, and which tells me that like that encounter, like that arena, was probably not meant for him, and it wasn't meant to be final. I don't know.
Yeah,
There's a lot to be speculated on, but
definitely.
I think it's just this. There's a jumbled mess here. We'll probably never get answers or clarification, and you know what? That's okay.
Yeah, it
That's
is what it
completely
is.
fine.
Uh,
I just think that for a raid that we get once a year, it is just mildly disappointing. But in terms of like accessibility for people, as much as I hate to say it, like I heard Shroud say something about this on stream, like while he was streaming, I tuned into his stream. Um, I think it's good, it's healthy, because the more people that they get that can do this kind of stuff, in theory, the more that Bungie will actually do them. Because eventually we're gonna run out of reprised raids,
I know, right?
right? Like we're already down to like the last two, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if we don't get Kurta, then there's just one left. So
Exactly.
I
So
mean, that's what people are thinking. Like, if it's it's pretty much has to be Wrath for the next reprisal raid.
yeah, and Bungie, I refuse to believe Bungie will make Crota a dungeon. As much as everyone wants it to be a dungeon, Bungie will not make it a dungeon. I mean, they showed that they can alter the mechanics to D2 level with King's Fall by making Oryx a damage check, like actually damage.
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't say check because it actually wasn't that hard, but I think that they would up Crota to today's standards, in my opinion, and keep it a raid. Because
I
I
think
just
it
don't
would
see
need
Bungie
the
folding on
most
that.
reworking, but that's fine. I think. I don't know. But for me, it's the order. Like the fact that they skipped it really is a telling sign that they just don't believe
Yeah.
that it
But
makes
that could
sense
also
to
mean
bring forward.
that it's in development. They're doing a huge rework of it,
Yeah, and
and
it
it's
just
just
takes more
taking
time to
time.
think about it,
Yeah.
which is also possible. Yeah.
I mean, we don't know. We don't know until it happens, but there ain't nothing wrong with speculating. I was saying, like, it's just,
Yeah.
who cares?
Yeah,
Right? I mean,
a lot of what we do is speculation.
we speculated all about Strand and Lightfall, before it, and I mean, there were some things that we were right on, and there were some things we were wrong on. Who cares?
Huh. I mean, it's kind of fun.
Yeah, thinking about what could be and what is.
I think in terms of like overall day one thoughts, though, outside of third encounter, I think what was skiz? What's it called? Our second encounter,
Scission.
I was like, it's like schism. I was like, no, that
Yeah,
doesn't sound
schism. Yeah,
right.
I want to say schism every time.
Schism.
I really do.
Yeah, that one. it That's like for us, that's the encounter where we kind of were more like, okay, Upal and I still kind of do the same thing, but now we just have so Quaz was on right side with me, and he would do like the anchor sides, I'll say. So as like I would cross back over with Eager, he would do like the third or fifth orb one. Yep. And then same worked for Solid Moople on the other side. It worked out. I mean, ultimately, I think trying to figure out that rotation, it's just an example of we tried to kind of do it maybe a little too properly. Instead of just kind of getting it done. Yeah. And that for us, like it's an aspect of like our or my team that definitely slowed us down for every encounter, was just focusing on actually kind of doing it how I think it was designed to be done, rather than what's the fastest way to be done. And for a day one that takes 2 hours and whatever 30 minutes, right, something like that.
Yeah, 2.5 hours.
That's just like not a situation where a lot of us, I won't say we aren't good at, it's just nothing we were prepared for at all. I was so convinced, I mean, going back to I think the last bot I brought it up, that because of the 3.0 design and all the build crafting involved, you know, Vendetta thought about this too, right, with the changes and it being so much more simplified, that to like execute was going to be more of an expectation because it's easier to now, right? You can have armor charges lasting for like a minute, and it's like, okay, if I can prep my surge buffs for a minute, that's a lot less needed for optimization than it once was, with only basically stasis being anything you could do on command, right? For getting font. And that sort of whole mindset of expecting something so much more difficult definitely slowed down my team. I'm curious to see how you feel about your team. Basically up until final boss, where at final boss we knew that the raid was over. I think the third encounter we probably should have done a little faster. Maybe that's because of maybe we weren't playing well. Maybe it was because the planets were just more confusing than they actually were. I think that's something that Quaz brought up at one point for us, was that if it wasn't all the planets rotating, and if it was just like an orb on the wall, it probably would have been a lot simpler to kind of understand what was needed. Just because like seeing them all move and then desync and then go back and forth was kind of, I don't know, for me it seemed kind of strange.
It's jarring.
It is. It just seemed very like strange, and like we were talking about before, you never see it up until that point and you never see it again. So it's just something that's kind of out of place, and if you're not really prepared for, you know, we're already kind of overthinking a lot of things. It's just not a good environment where a team like mine it's just, like I said, we just weren't prepared for it. I firmly believe that while we didn't necessarily play as well as we wanted to, it really came down to us just not being prepared for the type of race it was, you know? This was a very DSC type raid in terms of, it was just about flying through it, man. The thing that DSC had, and why I think it took so much longer, is that Aatrox was such a hard stop, you know? This raid didn't really have it. Your bosses fell over, right? Even using Eager, like you could have 3 people doing damage and you'd be okay. What are your thoughts on that? I kind of went on a little bit of a tangent, so
no, you're good. You're good.
Give you some space to talk.
I think it's just kind of like you already touched on a little bit. Like for instance, third encounter, like for us, we figured pretty quickly that you know the seed trading, and we tried to get multiple people on it. And then once it started to basically fail every time we tried to,
yes,
like, kind
absolutely,
of we basically just decided, look, you touched it first, all right, just do it. We'll just keep you alive. Like, we'll just we'll pave the way for you. Don't even worry about it. Just keep doing what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
And even though that might not even be the most effective way moving forward, it's what got it done, right?
Yeah, for a day one, totally. I think one thing Not that I'm not trying to say anything like about what we did terribly or what someone else did wrong, but Salt was really on the side of we should be doing like multiple people doing this job. Like it doesn't make sense to. So us trying to spend the time to figure out how to integrate multiple people is another aspect that really just, in terms of how the day one went, wasn't the right approach. It would have made sense just for me and Moople to constantly just be soloing it, because at the end of the day, that's what would have gotten it done faster, even if maybe it wasn't as efficient.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
And based off of what I'm hearing, you guys pretty much had that mentality of like, you know what, you guys first encounter, you figured it out, you know how it works. Second encounter, just keep it going, and just keep moving, because there's no time in the raid where you need time wise to have more than one person doing each thing.
And in fact, it just made it easier for more of us to just be on ad duty, than trying to juggle this, mechanic that we don't even fully understand, but we figured it can work with just one person.
Yeah.
Like once we figured out that it can just work with one person, it was kind of a no-brainer, just let them do it. I mean, we had our warlocks do it because of Icarus dash reasons, and well skating and stuff, which again, the fact that that's like ignoring the trampolines and just ignoring like
Listen,
things.
It's kind of stupid to have those type of mechanics. Like you're literally forcing yourselves to just get physics, and they're like, "Oh, Bungie's like, we fixed getting killed and splattered, so it's okay now." It's like, no, it's still Destiny's not a game where like that works. It was such a jarring thing, and we're just like, literally just eager across. It's so much safer.
Yep.
Yeah, it was funny that was a thing.
And it really helped that, at least with my team, when we figured that out, like when things started getting messed up, immediately like Lethal was just like, Vendetta was just like, all right, I'm not touching the buff again. Like I'm just not. Like I'll be killing ads, right? And then we all sort of just kind of almost quietly came to the same consensus of like, let these two guys do it all because they can do it all, and we just support, right? And it was a whole different mentality because going into the planets encounter, we sort of knew very, very little, because it was brand new, and Lunar was trying to do his best to see what people were doing ahead of us, and we got there, and as soon as I got the buff, I immediately, to be honest, I almost think Planet Encounter like is actually very simple, but in a raid that it's supposed to be in.
Yeah,
and I don't
for
know
sure.
if that makes
I
sense.
totally agree. Like I genuinely think in that train, in terms of if it was genuinely designed with like that sort of alignment concept as a main mechanic rather than something like a curveball, you could definitely do like a intro boss, third encounter style boss, typical 1 2 3 4 style that Bungie has, where that's the second one, and that's the integration of the alignment but also with a boss, right? So first encounter, you have alignment and making it all work. Then you have alignment with the boss. Then you might have alignment and another thing, and then alignment and another thing and the boss, right?
Yep.
Basically what we're talking about in the intro of this.
And for us figuring that out, we actually like hit the nail on the head. There's just one piece missing, which was dunking it on the plates. That, to me, because there was so much focused on the outside platforms and on the inside where you do damage from, all there was just ads to just kill, and that's it. Like it didn't seem like there was that importance besides killing the Centurions. I feel like we literally just didn't see it for a good while, up until I believe either I died or someone died next to one, and I walked by it and I was like, wait, there's a thing here. This wasn't here. Right. And I was like, we have to dunk it. And then I looked at this, with the buff, and I was like, that's it. That's how you do it. You just dunk the ones we need. We pull from any of them. Right. And the fact that there's 10, is there 10? No, there's like six on each side.
6 on each side, so 12.
Yeah. So there's like 6 on each side. Right.
You don't need,
I almost
you only
said
need
10
one.
total. You only need 1 and 2
it's
from
so
another
weird,
side.
right?
Yeah. which is it's just so strange to me.
Yeah, I totally think the same thing, especially since you have it all matched. So it's literally grab anything that's light, grab anything that's dark.
Yeah,
It doesn't.
It just seems odd. There's something.
It seems like there should be a specific one that you should grab, and maybe somebody has to get like the insight to tell you.
Yeah,
I don't know. Like it's that like secondary depth that I think the encounter misses. And then in terms of the day one, when you don't have that simplicity is just like, bam, you get it. Okay, now you're on boss damage, boss falls over, bam. And you know, that's why I think it's super similar to like the DSC squad that World's First, you know. You have a very similar team, right? The Luminous boys. With, you know, like Soto and Shenzi in like the DSC squad, right, and Terra, and now you've got, you know, Rowan's squad with SK and Drangolf, like very similar teams in my opinion. Perfect situation for those boys to absolutely run over. I mean, like Rowan's squad won our Elysium little 3-man thing, and it's like,
oh yeah, I mean those guys are they're not even, you know, they probably weren't even like. We're gonna find more about that later. I mean, spoilers, but
yeah,
you know, those guys are insane. They're extremely good at high-end PvE and speed runs, right? And you know, to kind of, you were talking about your team a little, if I may, you know, put some stuff out there. You know, we, contrary to popular belief, Elysium is not a speedrunning clan.
No, definitely not.
We do not speedrun. Like ever. I know Salt was doing some GM speeds at one point.
GM speeds are not the same as what, you know, like these boys do.
Yeah, like these guys, they're actual speedrunners.
Yeah, like, and like pure optimization in like the 6-man environment. And for a raid that is rather simplistic, that heavy optimization ability really lends itself to like being an incredibly effective squad, right?
Yeah, and their ability, I mean, honestly, I'm pretty sure, you know, any speedrunners want to correct me if I'm wrong, half the time in speedruns, you're doing almost every mechanic with an eager sword anyways.
Yeah, I know. It's baked like, into their characters, bro.
Like they're right at home, man. This was like hell yeah, like they're big chilling, you know, and they just figured it out. Like they kind of basically had that mentality. Like they're all so good that basically any one of them could have picked up the buff and been like, I can do it. Like they immediately just said, I can do this solo. And everyone goes, okay. And then they just frag out.
And just like that is so much time save compared to like a squad like mine,
okay, here, let me help you, Cruz.
Tries
get the
to
buff after you.
Think a lot about how to make it as effective as possible, thinking it's going to be something like Val, you know, where that situation is so much more critical.
Yep. You know, and if the difficulty, you know, was what, I mean, if something felt a little off, you know, I don't want to sound like I'm diminishing any accomplishments or anything, but if something just felt a little bit off, like ads didn't feel scaled right.
It's all just context, in my opinion. So whether or not you win with it really being hard or win with it really being easy, at the end of the day, you still have to win. It's just going to be like, we won Val, like my team, which is like my favorite. It's not my favorite day one experience. It's my favorite day one that we've won. And that's purely because of what we had to overcome. And that's something that's unique to that situation. For this situation, it's that overcoming is the speed and just nailing something as fast as possible. And when it's this fast, nailing it quickly is so much more important, because you don't get to the point where there is a damn, okay, we're on this hurdle, we got to climb it. How do we do that? That's something that my team is really good at, and why like the overcoming the vast situation was something that was realistic for my team to do. But in this case, you know, we're overthinking a lot of things. We're not keeping it as, you know, the keep it simple, stupid. Definitely something that we could have maybe taken some advice from, because when you're just executing as a squad of just 6 about going literally as quick as possible, I mean, this is like the raid to do it.
Oh yeah. and it's that sort of like I had this conversation I think with maybe in a bit Bacon or Vendetta, but it was like, you know, we were preparing for it, and I was basically telling him like, look, like we shouldn't worry about this thing or X thing. And it's like, I don't know, it sounds like you're kind of underestimating it. I'm like, well, listen, I mean, you remember the ads in opening, you know, King's Fall and opening Vow, like they're not that scary, and it just somehow got even like less threatening.
Yeah, I mean, we got way more
You know,
powerful than those days. Even King's Fall, you know, it's like that was the beginning of like the 3.0 meta. I mean, sure, like Void was out and stuff like that, Solar was out, but it really hadn't become established yet, you know, how
mm-hmm.
broken certain aspects, like
Yep,
genuinely Fusion Warlock and how busted it is, right?
yep. I mean, they went after like things like bonk build, and I mean, there is downsides to bonk build. There is very few downsides to Starfire.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
especially in a day one situation. Even when Bonk was in its prime and Salt was all over it, even during those situations, there was still a point where we're like, it doesn't make sense to do this. It's better to play with just totally commander days, you know, just
mm-hmm.
run that. It makes more sense in a
Yeah,
team environment because, you know, you're trying to steal kills for roaring stacks. It's much more, that's much more of an optimization thing and
yeah,
a post day one new thing that's strong in a brand new situation. People aren't going to rely on that. It's just like an optimization thing where after it's like, okay, now I can bake it and now it's a problem, but I don't know, at the end of the day, is it really a problem if it's not affecting the most pinnacle aspect of Destiny?
yeah.
In my opinion, you know, obviously I want a Bonk to get nerfed, and I think it's well designed now where it's kind of, you know, you have a lot of solo play and you are still putting out crazy damage, but it's just not, you know, three hitting a boss.
Yeah,
You know, there's always going to be something that's overpowered and
of
that kind
course.
of affects day ones and GM metas and all that stuff. Right now, it's pretty much solely just Starfire. I think if Starfire's reined in, there isn't something overly overpowered, at least
There's still
in my.
obviously very strong options. Like for
Yeah,
most
I mean,
classes,
Foil's
it's just
still super strong, but with its tuning, it's not overpowered anymore.
yeah. I mean, and I feel like people they kind of just write off certain things based off what other people say and or are using or don't do. And I mean, right now, Quaz is out there, you know, trying to solo the final boss of this raid using a Sunbracers build, right?
Yeah,
Which most people have very much written off. You know, it
yeah,
uses
because it's
infinite
not
restoration times two.
Starfire.
Exactly. But honestly, in the way he's using it, it's probably infinitely more broken than Starfire.
I
Like,
mean, there's a reason
if,
they nerfed Resto on like Loreley, for example, right? It's because
yeah,
they were like, oh, we don't want you to be unkillable. But then there's literally a situation with
yeah,
Sunbracers where if you properly like have, you know, Ember of Empyrean, you have
hmm
Sunbracers, and you have Phoenix Dive with Heat Rises, you can combine all of that and get essentially permanent restoration times two.
yeah,
So long as you can keep killing things.
and it's really really easy to do. And you know what? You know what's funny? You know, I sort of hate this. I've always hated this. And if you're one of these people, just know that I look down upon you. It requires you take off Icarus Dash. Okay, the amount of people I know that would probably watch, you know, I'm not gonna get too crazy here, but probably watch their firstborn. They probably skip out on their firstborn, like being born or whatever, just to make sure they kept Icarus Dash on. Like it's insane the love they
Yeah.
have for that, and it's like, look, it's fun. I get it. Okay,
Yeah,
don't
movement
get me
it can
wrong.
be strong, but oh boy.
Okay, but like it requires you use Heat Rises, and it's just like everybody just writes it off because Heat Rises things, and it's like Heat Rises is broken. It's actually broken, not balanced, not at all.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's just, I don't know. It's for that, like for that reason alone, they're just like, oh, if I have to use, you know, um, He Rises, then it can't be that good. You're crazy. You're just crazy. You know, that happens a lot. Another good one is Titan with Consecration. I mean, we've talked about this at lengths.
I love Consecration.
People completely wrote off Consecration, even though Consecration is like insane. With Synthos, it's actually like one of the highest like bursts you can do in the game.
It is crazy. Like the pure damage output you can just do with like an up down slam. It's awesome, and it's so much fun to use.
Yeah.
It's just that you kind of have to put yourself in harm's way, and that's like the risk. And that's why it's balanced. That's why it's not like OP compared to just using bonk with like Synthos and just infinitely healing. I mean, if Consecration had infinite uptime and healed you every time you did an up and a down, yeah, it would be broken. But like it doesn't, and that's why it's actually kind of balanced.
Yep.
Fun to use, but not oppressive. But yeah, I think ultimately, just like to end off day one talk, what I would say is that for my team, I'm totally fine with what happened and the outcome. By the time we got to final boss, we weren't really, I'll say, as serious, because for us it's kind of like, getting 20 isn't really as relevant as just pursuing one. And when you kind of know that it's over, it's like, oh good, we'll have a little bit more fun. We're still trying, of course. I'm not saying that we just fucked around and got whatever 57 or something like that, but I am personally okay with our placement. It wasn't really a raid or just a day that really suited our playstyle and our strong suit. I have no issues with who won. I'm definitely not surprised because of how competitive that group is. Especially with, us
they're
even
not
being
underdogs.
No, it's so funny that it's like underdogs.
People
It's like literally the same
underdogs?
situation as us, where it's like, yeah, we have a really good team. Oh, we're underdogs. Oh, the underdogs went back to back. It's like, no, we're like you end up winning that second one, and even the third one is not like. I think the third one is the only time we weren't underdogs. And it's like insane to think that, oh, because we weren't Dado or math class or someone else. Math class hasn't even won and they're not underdogs. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
It's insane. So just like, if anyone calls them underdogs, or literally anyone calls anyone an underdog, unless they're genuinely complete newbies who only have like one top 50, they're underdogs. People who get like top 10 consistently and are some of the like best 100 players in the world, they're not underdogs. So all I can say is congrats to them. And they won what I think will be known as like the speedrunner belt. Like that's what it is. Every belt and every race has a name to it. The Val belt is the error code belt. It is what it is. Some teams got more, some teams got less. My team being able to pursue and overcome 17 error codes versus like the other teams that only had like 3 or 2 or 1 even, is like, that's the thing that we overcame. And this one is like literally DSC to the next level in terms of, you got to figure it out and do it freaking quick, because if you don't, you're not going to be winning.
Yeah. And a lot of it just came down to like almost kind of like, I don't know if egoing or just kind of ignoring what the typical Bungie thing to do in a lot of these raids. And for us, it's really hard to do because we sit there and we ponder and we theory craft and we speculate, because Bungie typically follows a pattern, and this broke it. This really broke it, and it kind of threw us for a loop. And like, honestly, 100%, if you put your team and a lot of other teams in the top 10, even Rowan's team in a scenario like Last Wish, how we are now, like with like the kind of how we've developed ourselves, and in a Last Wish, most of our teams would probably get that clear. We'd probably be up for the 20 hours it takes or whatever, and really push it, like, because we're those kind of like real lengthy players, and like, with saying that, people look at Glad and Redeem, they just kind of like, most of them are playing variety games, so they're not turbo like Destiny focused, which obviously kind of affects it a little bit. But if they were, they would be up there too. They've proven that.
Yeah, it's
You
not
know,
like they've
those are the
gotten
guys
like
that those are the
worse at
resilient.
doing those types
Yeah,
of raids. It's just they don't have the prioritization. They're not as invested in it. And I mean, kudos to them. They've been through it. They reap the benefits from it. You know, a lot like a few of them have like pretty healthy careers as a result of those day ones.
yeah,
And that's sort of how they built up their notoriety. We sort of follow that same footstep of being like we pride ourselves on the ability to overcome obstacles that take a lot of banging your head against a brick wall, and you just got to get through it. Like you just got to persevere and push through it all. Like the only recent thing I can say that would be like that is VAO, purely because of persevering through error codes. If VAO didn't have error codes, then it would have been like a 4-hour race.
oh yeah,
But like I think anything like Goss or more, Crown, if it was like a full raid, I think that would have been like a 10-hour thing because of just the sheer just difficulty of just doing the raid and just surviving and
yep, staying
yeah,
alive, killing the knights, killing the ogres,
doing your
like
job, not failing. Like
yeah,
don't
passing the
mess up.
buffs.
Just don't mess up. Like dude,
Yeah,
that's the
like
raid. Don't mess up. Do all
and
that.
really respecting the mechanic. Like the way I see it is, imagine doing Crown, except you only had two people going around passing the bus around, killing your knights for you, and you just kind of killed the rest of the other ads.
Yeah, genuinely, like 2 people 2-manning it the way we know, just cycling with the buff and breaking all the crystals and stunning all the guys. And then you just had 4 people just killing things, killing the ogres when they spawn. That is so
Yeah.
easy. But that's not something you could have done because everything was so deadly.
Yeah, and that's just, if this is the direction they're gonna go in, we've got to start practicing differently.
Yeah, I actually was
You know,
genuinely thinking that maybe not for Wrath, because so far in terms of how we perform in reprise raids, I mean, I think we've got a good
Yeah.
standard.
2
Of
for 2.
yeah, exactly, and how execution based it is, and that's something we're good at. But I still think going forward, I genuinely think like being a little bit more meta slavey and practicing speedy things, not a bad thing to go forward.
And I think it's also important. Like it's, you know, part of that speedrun stuff is like a lot of the times when you're doing it, you're not really focused on optimization until you can keep doing it, right? So in the moment, they're basically just using things to get them there, and then if that's not enough to push them over, let's say during a boss phase or whatever, then they'll start figuring out how to do it without using all the speedy tools at their disposal, if that makes sense, right? Like,
Right, it's kind of
i.e.,
like,
using a sword for
yeah,
damage.
start
You know?
with full speedy optimization, see where we're at, and then from there maybe take it down a notch, see how we
Mhm.
get. Oh, damage is still a little tight, let's take it down one more. Okay, now we're good, right?
Yeah, and again, like they're not underdogs. Rowan, SK, all those guys, Puns. That's Puns' second belt.
Yeah, I
That's
know.
literally his second belt.
Yeah. Big boy belt too, right? The gold one.
Yeah,
Not
like
the one everyone calls theirs fake.
it's insane to me. Like there's, I mean, SK. We were on a team with SK back in Shadowkeep.
Yeah, our
You
Goss team
know,
had SK on it.
like
We had a solid squad. We were just missing
we
like a
did.
couple things. We had a solid 4.
Yeah,
Maybe,
our
I genuinely do believe like that was such a good squad. And I
I
still
agree.
think we played, our Goss was still so good until Sank just kind of, became what it was.
It just kind of
But that was
ripped us apart. But
definitely what could have been thing.
yeah, I mean, I know I enjoyed playing with SK a lot. SK is really good, really smart dude. Like we were just coasting through mechanics. Like I honestly, I'm surprised it didn't happen sooner. Like you guys were on a tear, right? And I'm surprised that like those guys didn't get a belt sooner, straight up,
Yeah.
because they're that good. And it's gotten to that. It's getting to that point where you have all these teams so like they're so freaking good that if the raid just caters to one just a little bit more, and I almost hate saying caters because it feels like a kind of a scapegoat.
I know we
You
don't.
know,
It's not coming across negatively. Like with how much we've talked about it, it's not like a thing that we use to say, "Oh, as a
like to
result of
value your
it,
win. You
it's
know,
because of this." It's just what it is. It is what it is. Everything has context.
yep. You know, and like for instance, I think I talked about a little bit about this with I don't know, I talked maybe it might have been Vendetta, but basically like your guys' Vogue, right? You guys were killing it, and then you got to Gatekeeper,
Yeah,
right?
I know.
And
Gatekeeper
your
almost made us lose because of
and
how
your
stupid the
Gatekeeper,
challenge was.
yeah, you guys got like you guys hit a huge speed bump, right? Which any other team, let's say that, you know, same skill level, but figuring out those kind of niche challenges fits them better. They just leap ahead of you, you know?
Hmm.
Like that's just simple as that. And that was at the time, and obviously you guys improve and every team improves and stuff, but like at the time it's just anybody that sort of could execute as good as you guys, but could have figured out the challenge a little bit faster, they just leap you, and that's just
Yeah,
how it is, you know.
yeah. I mean,
But at
we
the
built
time,
the lead
nobody
from
could
just our
execute.
execution
Yeah,
on that early stuff. It was like so impressive how quickly we were able to get everything else done that we ultimately bought ourselves enough time to figure out a mechanic that was like just really something that we didn't think was in play.
yeah. You know, it wasn't super intuitive. I mean, it kind
Yeah.
of goes back into like we use a lot of Bungie meta to sort of like account for things. You know, things they've done in the past. You know, to give an example, Bungie will almost never make a mechanic that will incapacitate more than 3 players at a time. And by that I mean in Goss, when you're tethered, um, you can do the tether with 3 players at any distance, right? Like they will never force you to do six man tethers where you can't fight ads
No.
because that's
Definitely
just
not.
suicide, right? So there's like little bits of Bungie meta that you can kind of account on. Um,
Nope.
and in that scenario, there wasn't a whole lot to go off of. So yeah, overall day one thoughts. I think just to kind of cap it off, I guess my conclusion of mine, I feel really good about how me and my team played. Um, I thought we played excellently. We had really good comms. We were like all kind of just like vibing off each other. Like it felt really smooth. If anything, that's probably the best part of the day one for me was how, you know, my team, we all just kind of like played, and it just felt really good.
Yeah.
You
I
know, I
think
mean,
I don't even know. Like
I mean, it
not
definitely was a
getting
little bit of a bummer to, you know, I'm sure you sort of agreed, like to not hit at least top 10. Um, well, actually, for you, it's to not win.
Yeah, I know that's the thing. Is like our expectation is like winning, so not winning,
Yeah,
like whatever, it kind of sucks. So
yeah, you're the winner, you don't win.
I definitely thought like 4 in a row was in our cards because I felt like if we played as well as we should have in what we thought the raid was going to be, that not that that's it wasn't guaranteed, but we had a really good shot because of that's just what we have
Yeah.
the proof of work or whatever evidence behind us that show, yeah, you know, when we do things right and we play solid, we do what we need to do, we usually come out on top. You know, that was our first loss as a team. So like listen,
Yeah.
like winning 3 in a row is still an insane high, and
Oh no, that's
I'm not gonna
insane.
lie, you know, having 3 belts beside me when I lose is definitely a lot easier than before.
There's worse feelings.
Yeah, I can go to sleep at night and still have a smile on my face. What I was most upset about was ultimately just like the day one experience just not living up to what I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be like one of my favorite experiences. I thought it was something that was hopefully going to cap off Lightfall in a high note, but unfortunately, day one difficulty, contest, the whole raid design, I'm just not a fan of. It's not what I like. Lightfall as a whole has brought a few good things and many things that maybe not really what I wanted to see. So, and that's the thing that's more disappointing to me. It's just the overall experience. I don't have an issue with like the placement, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was I did not expect that World's First to be as mundane of an experience as it was. There was nothing about that day one for me that ever really felt like this was right. I'm not gonna lie, I had this gut feeling from first encounter that it just didn't feel the same. Something was off. So whether that was me playing into suspicion or whatever, I don't know.
Yeah.
I freaking knew something felt different. Something was in the air. But yeah, I'm okay with it. It's just, like I said, it just sucks that that's the raid we got, because to be honest, I think Vow without first encounter, or not first encounter, without opening is a pretty damn good raid. I may not be a huge fan of first encounter in general, but even with first encounter and just just opening on, I still think it's one of Destiny's best raids. And I cannot say the same thing about this raid. And ultimately, like I said, like that's the thing that disappoints me, because you know, this is the thing that we're gonna play with for the next while. This is where all the low mans are happening, and like I just think it makes sense. Of course, this is the low man that just instantly is being done on contest, or the raid that has instantly, you know, contest flawless clears, 3-mans, already working on solos. Like it's like day 2 and we're doing solos. Like
Yeah,
that's just literally what
that's
I
the part
see. Like that's okay. Yep, this raid is just not well designed. It's just not. Yeah, it just sucks. I feel bad. It makes me sad.
That's the part that gets me is, you know, a raid that's 3-manable. Like, once upon a time, Saul, and Rapier, we 3-manned Contest Templar, and that was a struggle.
Big deal. That was a big deal for you
Like,
guys getting through that.
That was hard. You know,
Yeah.
that guy had a lot of health. The ads really hurt in there. You know, we were doing some cheesy stuff with like stasis type deal to like clear all the ads faster, and you know, we really had to bust out our brains a little bit and just kind of run around, block the teleports, stay alive. And you know, the fact that this one, the final boss and both bosses and pretty much the entire raid was 3-manned on contest with 20 power under, is just either there's something with the raid or there's something with our balance. Like as a character, like as our power, like there's something that's got to give, because this ain't it, you know.
This ain't it, Chief. Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
It's just like not really. I mean, how many overall clears were there? Like what was it? Like 270,000 or something like? Isn't it like crazy high? Like, or in terms of like people getting it?
Well, I know the teams, like
what was the team
teams
number?
was like 45K, I think.
That's yeah.
At the
So I
end
think
of the
that makes
48.
sense. If you times it by 6, that many clear. I think so. So like that's
Yeah.
insane. That's insane. That's way too many. Vow
Yeah.
with literally an extra day, and King's Fall. I think we're fine difficulty wise with that in mind, because you only had like 5 to 6K teams.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh my goodness, this, I can't believe this was like a raid. It doesn't feel like it. It feels like a sub raid in terms of initial difficulty.
Yeah.
Like people are making it a joke already.
You want to back us out and take us to the helm?
Yeah, sure, we can go.
And you know, and again, just a quick little tangent.
If you go on your tangent, let me grab. I've had food sitting on my door. I just need to go get it. So
okay, I'll go on my
tangent.
You know, for those that have seen or are participating in the Salta Grepo kind of hate train, don't do that. All right, like they won 3 in a row. Okay, a better team won. Like that, a better team on the day won. Right, that's it. And you know, Cruz's opinion here, this is not his opinion because he lost. If you don't believe me, go look back at his Twitter and see how he talked about Vow. He won Vow. and just go ahead and take a look at what he said there, and he won, right? Um, this he would have pretty much the same exact reaction if you won or not. Um, and so if you see people actively like spreading, kind of hatred towards Salt, you know, I'd ask just don't participate in it. I mean, you don't have to tell people to stop or like tell them what to do or anything or jump in front of any bullets or whatever. But just don't add to it. So believe me, everybody that's tweeting at Salt will reply to every single one. He'll
He
get
can't
to
help it.
eventually. Yeah, he just has there's a need to do it, and I mean, good for him.
He's getting a little better. I'm not gonna lie. He's getting a little better. He's letting some
Yeah.
things go. And like to be honest, the other tweet he had the other day of just like surviving in a well against the boss on contest. He didn't even say I don't even need to say anything or something like that. And I'm like, that is the right thing, because you've said what you need to say. You can just provide more evidence if you want, but ultimately, like, you've made your points very clear. And yeah, I think for his own mental, I hope he continues with that, because I don't want to see him have to like defend himself because people who frankly probably suck at the game or just have bad, low IQ cognitive abilities, like come on, like if you can't see how well is broken, then there's no amount of explaining you can do.
And if your answer to well being broken is don't use it, I challenge you to take your own advice and do do a couple GMs when they come out without using a well. I mean, because for us it's fairly easy because we typically are very good about that, but for the average player, good luck. It's gonna hurt a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, even Master Raid, when the Master Raid comes out, do it without a well. Have fun with that.
I mean it's not easy to survive against him in Nezarec without a well. Like you could die during damage even on a plate. Like well, just guarantees your safety.
Yep, the DR and the instant healing, it just saves you every time. And that well, like that abyssal cleave for most people would just instantly like chunk you full, but because of the DR, you survive with a little bit, and then the healing is so rapid that you're full. You blink and you're full.
Yeah.
But yeah, to kind of cap off my point here, like Elysium, yeah, we didn't take another title, but we're proud of our friends over there in Harden the Paint and Luminous, some good friends of ours that we've known for a very long time. Like the high-end PvE community is all very aware of each other. Like we're not strangers. Like we're not in some like crazy like rivalry. Like most of us have been playing with each other since like Warmind, So
there's been a lot of overlap over the years, and
yeah,
just because we're in different clans doesn't mean we're it's not like we hate each other or anything like that. Like
complete strangers.
It's really like it's all good. Like I'm happy they won. Of course I would have wanted to win, but to kind of connect to your point about like like me slamming Val like the day one, like yeah, it was a pitiful day one and as an experience for us, because just because we overcame it didn't mean that I just changed my opinion. It's like, oh, it's the best day one ever. No, it was still terrible. Yeah, I won. I'm gonna slam it still because that should have never happened. Like that's a terrible look, and I don't think a AAA studio should ever have servers be that dysfunctional on the most important day of the year for them. Or well, you don't want to say that. You could say the expansion drop is maybe the most important, but I would say in terms of Twitch views and eyes on the game, day one rating is Destiny's highlight. Like that's when everyone, even people who don't really watch, will watch. And if you have that experience shown, you see people just not being able to play the game, and that's affecting who gets world's first. I mean, that sucks. Like that's and it's like yeah. If I think if we did win, and we just like let's say we just figured out mechanics super quick and just steamrolled everything, it would have been like, oh, that was it. Like it definitely, for me, having won multiple, probably would have felt the worst. Not to say it would have felt bad, But in terms of things that I would have, or feelings I would have had towards it, it's not the experience I want. Not what I would have wanted to have in a world's first title.
I mean,
It's not what I play the game for.
one of the and truly one of the best feelings is when you've spent anywhere from an hour to 2 hours on final boss, and you've been getting to final stands, and you're just at the edge there. You're saving your supers, fly. Sick reference there,
Yeah.
and you're getting that last bit of ammo, that last Izzy shot, and you're putting everything you have, and you see the white mechanic coming, and you get the kill, and like just that burst of just like adrenaline, just like, oh my god, we killed it, holy shit, like we did it, like we actually went over the edge. Like, that wasn't there here. And I think that's what our biggest grievance is, because every day one has had that feeling almost for every encounter. Like every encounter, a small like burst of energy keeping you going, right? And then and here it was just like we go through our first damage phase. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm pretty sure my team started the Thunderlord meta that's happening right now in this raid.
I think so. I think you guys did, to be honest.
I actually think we did. I mean, we were holding on to that strat, and I mean, I don't know if you saw the clips, but Thunderlord fucks. You need a divinity though. Don't forget that you need a divinity. And with Thunderlord, we went in and we just started blasting him. We got to about half in a single damage phase, and we were like fairly optimized on contest. Yeah. Okay. Like as soon as we saw that, all bets were off. We knew we were gonna kill. We just have to survive. That's now the struggle is gone. Like, because typically the part in a day one where everybody's at the high end PVE, we're all really good at this, but some teams are slightly better than others. And like to Cruz's point, in a scenario where final boss is super chunky, required really good positioning, required really tight, coordination with mechanics, include with multiple people grabbing the buffs and kind of going back and forth and stuff, and had a really, really nasty damage check, kind of like Rolk did. A different team could have won, and it's just that's just the way it goes.
What you're saying about like normally it's, or in this case it's okay, you guys knew you could do the damage with the Thunderlord thing. It was just surviving. Like, just get to damage, you'll kill. That I don't think it's ever been in a day one before. Normally it's always get over the first hurdle, figure out what you need to do, and execute. Okay, we know how to get to damage, but our damage sucks. How can we start optimizing things to get us over that damage check, or like be good enough with our damage output to where we can actually get the kill?
And one of the exceptions is King's Fall. I mean, because it was a reprise raid, but King's Fall, it was a little bit of neither, in my opinion. I'm pretty sure you guys one shot normal King's Fall, right?
What do you mean one shot?
Like, you guys went in, and because you figured you knew the bomb mechanic and stuff and reprise raid, like you guys like almost first tried it.
I think, I don't think really, damage was never an issue.
Yeah. Like King's Fall,
it was more just once you kind of know the mechanic, then just have your stasis stuff ready, Supreme Wellmaker, stasis crystals, bam, with reeds, just blink, 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 and you'll kill.
I mean, it wasn't even that
on War Priest you needed that.
It wasn't even that free. I mean, War Priest was probably the hardest out of the entire King's Fall,
and mainly because of his movement and just his general health pool. Like, you did need to have basically a stack of normal buff, font basically, and then your debuff. If you had all three of those and you hit your shots, you're gonna kill, which is like okay, but hitting your shots and him moving and actually being decent, you having ammo's probably the biggest reason. You need all those factors playing. Oryx was much simpler. I mean, you still had to have those numbers, but getting those numbers was pretty easy for King's Fall, in terms of having those efficient buffs.
Yeah, I mean, and it's hard to know, what could and couldn't have happened. But all you can know right now, because of what happened, is hard in the paint. They went hard in the paint.
Hell yeah.
Those guys killed it, man. Like, I'm telling you, like, even I talked to one of my teammates, Dadbot. He like genuinely hates champions. I don't really mind them, especially now. But he genuinely hates champions because he's a speedrunner. He's done quite a few speedruns. He did solo speeds in dungeons. And he hates them because they're just effectively a speed bump. They force him to use something to account for it that might interfere with his ability to go fast, right? And I felt in this raid there wasn't a lot of that. And that really just played that it fit the bill, man. The faster team won.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. I mean, hell, if you guys basically had gotten to, let's say, Scission, right? And you had said one person buff on each side and then everybody else just kill lads. If you had said that immediately, I mean, how much time would that have saved you? Probably
Yeah,
a
I mean,
good
I
amount of time.
think like we were kind of doing that early on. It was just, Salt's very persistent. He's got that
He's a little hard
personality.
headed.
He
Yeah, a little
is
hard-headed,
definitely.
yeah.
Nothing against him. That's just his personality, right? And that's
I got a
something
lot against
in our team. Okay, well,
it.
Vandal could say that. I won't. But like, I think we could have probably, with just like a couple more, like one or two more runs, like Amupla and I were just kind of getting used to our rotation of like what we are doing. I think if we just commit to that, yeah, we probably do it like 10 minutes quicker. And after doing that encounter, we went into the next room. I don't remember what happened, but like Moople died or something. Traversing was way back. He left because we didn't have the buff to open the door. Like literally, like the little like intro mechanic type thing. You know what I'm talking about, where you had to do like the light and dark bit. Yeah, that just didn't spawn even after he left. So we then had to join him, and then we go into the big traversing jumping puzzle area where you kind of have to keep the buff going to survive the darkness blast. Yeah, like the light buff just never procced it. I immediately was running and just shooting them, and nothing was ever happening. So we were just dying over and over again. We spent probably like 30 minutes trying to just brute force it. Eventually we left and had a new instance, and it was working. So it's like, that's great. And then we finished that, and then the door's not opening, which I know happened to, I feel like, a lot of teams, just because if you went too fast through that area, it just wouldn't, you just had to hug it.
Yeah, you just had to get right next to it.
Yeah, well, and we also had to wait. Like after we did a clear with Mango, and one of Salt's friends who we were just doing a day one with, and yeah, we went to the door, didn't work. We went all the way back to like the death area, the jumping area, and then we went and we slow walked all the way there, and then hugged the wall, and then it worked. And it's like, wow, that's tragic. I mean, it's so similar to VANDAL though, where it's like, oh, if you go too quick through something, just doesn't work. But you're also trying to go quick, because you never know if 30 seconds is going to make the difference. You don't want to just walk through something and just, okay, I'm praying that this works. I feel like that definitely just that little quick between second and third encounter. I swear we probably lost like 30 minutes just from that stuff going wrong.
And I'd be interested to see what SK's team, how long they spent there, because I know all those guys are really good at like well skating, sword flying, obviously going fast. So I would not be surprised if they just like gone and they just flew right through.
I was genuinely worried. I was thinking of just like Eager with line rampants, just like flying through. Yeah, I died, but I just kind of like eventually brute force my way there. I was worried about soft locking. Because I was like, oh my gosh, if I don't like trigger all these, does the game know that I'm supposed to be here?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. That played into my mind. I don't know about the rest of my team. I never even brought that up, but that played into my mind so much during that area, and most of the traversing mid encounters or between encounters. Like, I'm so paranoid because I don't want that to be the reason I don't win. But I mean, the whole day was just weird. Quickly just going back on top of to the execution kind of aspect, where we're talking about like getting to the damage and then getting over the damage, that second hurdle. I think a really easy example for me to reference is just my Rolk day one, because first time we got there, damage our final damage happened, and his we just like we instantly died. Like his stacks were just increasing on us like crazy, like the pervading darkness, and
Mhm.
because we didn't really understand what was going on, it was so quick. We're like, okay, all right, we need to be ready for that. Next time we get there, we're saving Goldie's Thunder Crash, our rockets, and instantly make the boss. Like literally so fast. And it's like that's just an example of just one slight bit of optimization we did, which, you know, it's simple, but it was just enough to kind of get that final burst.
I mean, and even watching you guys is clear here. I was watching Salt's POV, and he had an eager sword out and Riptide, and during damage, he literally was just Riptide in the boss. And you guys
Yeah,
are doing about half, and I was like over half,
and
and I
I
was
was
like, this is
literally
unreal.
just sorting the boss. I was literally just like, okay. When we killed, I'm like, I'm using a normal sword and I'm killing a raid boss on day one. This is not real. Like it's just like, is this timeline real? Like what is happening?
Yeah. I mean, this may just be a changing of the times, you know, and I think this might be a sign that we need to kind of expect a little bit less, because we always prepare for the hyper optimization.
I know,
all these
we really
builds
do.
and like
This is
really
the
getting
raid
like we
that
crunch the
I
numbers.
spent the most
like,
time prepping thing. Getting literally every single possible damage scenario in our minds. We were having an argument about when we'd use tracking rockets versus linears, depending on how is the crit hard, is the boss moving, how much time do we have, what are people's roles, would there ever be like we're going crazy in depth, and I ended up using Eager Edge for 75% of the raid. That's not the day one that I want to experience. That's really just the thing that that's the period.
So
for
I
me
ask
is
you,
using an Eager Edge sword for most of the raid.
So here's a question, right? So and I guess we can sort of cap off this episode with this question.
For sure.
You know, if you made it this far, put a comment in the comments, and or go to the Discord and answer it there. But do you think that following the reprise raid example, do you think that day one's moving forward to kind of, I guess, give us what we want and also give everyone else what they want, should have, because a lot of the times for us it's really just the raid report tag, like the placement. I'm not gonna lie, well, obviously not for you because you've won, but for a lot of other people it's, you know, the raid report tag, where you placed. Do you think that it would be fair, or give me your opinion on this? The normal clear is the contest clear and it gives everybody the emblem, and there's a challenge clear that happens and it has nothing behind it, but Raid Report still tracks it, and you can get your placement on Raid Report. Right? I mean, maybe even Bungie would recognize the challenge clear. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. One thing I was thinking of actually, I think earlier, was just that I genuinely don't even care about like the emblem anymore and like how it's given out. Like I genuinely don't. Whatever.
Yeah.
You could give it to 300,000 people. I don't. It doesn't really affect me. Ultimately, what I just want is a purely difficult day one that you should enter if you want a chance to win the belt. If you want to play normal mode on day one and get the emblem, I don't care at this point. You tell me this 2 years ago, I would have been losing my mind saying, no, that's a terrible idea. You need to keep this because you need to. Now, I'm over that. Mm-hmm. Give the emblem to whoever. Give the day one tag to whomever you want. Doesn't matter to me. Make it the full weekend. I don't care. Do normal mode. It can be whatever power you want. You go through the entire raid. It's fine. You get the day one emblem. But if you want to compete for the tag or the belt, sorry, I'm plugging in my headphones. At the same time while doing this, I heard it beeping. Okay, 1 sec. I
guess while you're doing that,
yeah,
like what I was getting at is like just kind of giving us the new raid with the challenge, because each of the encounters has a challenge, but give us the challenge clear and then maybe put the belt behind the challenge clear, because let's be real here, the belt's only really being contended for by like
we're being realistic, like 10 teams.
Yeah, I wouldn't say like a handful, but like not a lot. There's not a lot of people that are really fighting for this belt. they're all really close. Like there's a lot of really good teams now.
Mhm.
And again, not to be an asshole, but you're not gonna have some kind of casual kind of LFG or casual friend group, probably take the belt. Like it's probably going to go to that. This is assuming it gets put behind a challenge version. Like imagine doing this raid, you do it normal, and then you go into the challenge mode, and now you got to do the challenges with the encounter. So you know how to do the encounter, but now you have to do it slightly different, following some rules, and then you know they probably add, or no, it's just the challenges, and then whoever beats that, then they get the belt, right? I think
Yeah.
that would sort of satiate kind of our hardcore community a little bit, because it would give you something to really like strive for and challenge for,
And if it's a way to just elongate the day one, at this point,
Yeah.
I
So
can't
honestly,
handle 2 hour days. And like, I just know it just
I don't think
feels wrong. So I
I don't know
genuinely
how.
enjoy multi clears that are 4 hours more than I enjoy solo clears that are 2 for the day one. But yeah, ultimately, what my point was before I was trying to plug in my headphones was super similar to that, where it's like make the contest mode like genuinely really challenging, and give out day one clears just for doing the day one like on anything. It's okay. I want the experience of being uber challenged,
Mhm.
and that is the experience I want for the world's first. If it takes 10 hours now instead of 2, good. I'm happy for that. I want it to be a grind. And
Yep.
if only 200 teams even try for it, that's fine too, because at the end of the day, they're not putting much investment into the contest mode, or whatever mode you want to call this new version of it. In my alternate reality, um, all they have to do is just scale. Okay, you're 25 under power. Okay, now do that. You're 30 under power. Okay, go do that. Like it's just all they got to do is turn down the sliders.
Yep.
I don't
I
want
agree.
anything else. Just make it harder, make it take longer. I don't think
Because at this point,
this day one was what it was, but I don't think a day one could ever be a situation like it was here, where you're genuinely just trying to speedrun, and skipping mechanics is a smarter option.
yeah, I mean that's just, oh man, yeah. I mean, there's a lot to be said about this raid. I just think that for us and for other people to expect Bungie to, I guess, sort of act upon this, we're just going to be living in a world of copium. Because, bottom line, I think this is the standard. To me, if I were Bungie as a company, this was an excellent day one.
Yeah, your numbers. Yeah, they
This
don't want
was
it to be too
an
limited to
awesome
people.
turnout,
Yeah.
right? And you know what? I don't even, man, I don't know. There's a lot of things I want, a lot of things we want, a lot of the same interests, but if maybe this all amounts to something better in the future, like some other, maybe a new, completely new, different type of activity that I don't know what they would even call it, but um, or just more raids per year, because
I mean, hey,
honestly,
when you're
more
saying like
raids
new
per year,
things, Destiny just in general needs evolution. We've
yeah.
been having strikes and Crucible,
Hmm.
even Gambit raids, day ones since literally the beginning. There needs to be a new thing. I'm hoping
Yeah.
that happens after Final Shape.
Yeah, I mean, and along the way, I hope they definitely add some things to to curb our need for that difficulty, spike, to really basically, because for us it's like wanting to show that we can do something, that we can put all this time and all this effort into our builds and like our skill and our ability to the test, right? And like really put it to use and our team play, because you don't use any of that when you're doing strikes or anything. Like it's just, who cares, right? That's why they're match made. So having no ground to do any of that kind of sucks, especially when I guess it's technically like our fault we put so much time into this game, but like it's still, you put all this time, you invest in this game, they want us to keep playing. Give me somewhere where I can now put it to the test, where I can put it to use. And GMs, when we didn't have tier 10 resilience, was a decent place to start. It was decent. I mean, I was never fully on the GM hate train. I think we both were not on that hate train.
No, I think both of us were pretty open to it being introduced.
Yeah, I always found them kind of fun, interesting, as long as you put with the right people,
Yeah, it's fun to just be like, every now and then, just be like, yeah, everything is impossible to kill, and you die instantly. All right, go have fun. It's like,
yeah, like good luck, and it's like,
sure,
say
it
less.
sucks sometimes, but it's also like, I gotta think a little bit differently now. And the more I think about the game, the more I'll enjoy it. So
yeah, I guess,
and if day ones do that, then I'm happy.
I'll just keep going to sleep praying that we get a forge mode, because if we get a forge mode, you better believe, I know I will, and I believe Cruz and I probably will be creating some real high end PvE activities.
That would be insane.
Like some real creative stuff. Like I in my head, I envision I'm sitting there making stuff, and I just basically give it to you to test, and you tell me, like, is this good or not? In a way.
Then we basically make our own little sandbox to test.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's what we all wanted the Crucible Labs to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that like separate server where they could test things and it'd be like, oh, this makes sense. Oh no, this doesn't make sense. Oh, this is a really unique change. This is, all those things.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so I'll just go to sleep coping for that. But otherwise, let us know your thoughts in the comments about the day one. Did you get a clear? What did you guys end up using for damage? What'd you think? Let us know. We want to hear.
Yeah, whether that's in the comments, we can even post a little question the Dugout server, which you guys can answer. And definitely sometime soon, we'll have a podcast where we'll do like maybe not like an AMA style. Maybe we'll do that for like a video, but definitely we'll pile up a bunch of questions, just rattle through what people think, and get you all involved sometime soon. And also next episode, just because we're kind of ending this one here, this was just our sort of all overall day one thoughts and stuff like that. But fortunately, from Vandal and I having past experience with SK and kind of knowing him pretty well, we're happy he's got his belt. I'm really happy the boy got it, the goss on me. I was really happy to be honest that he was able to get it, because I mean, not many people know, but he's like a super elite WoW reader too. So he's got that kind of mindset that
he's so good at WoW. It's
Vandal
crazy.
And I kind of respect and like kind of have it. We kind of apply it as much as we can to Destiny. But yeah, we are going to be having him on to talk about his experience with the world's first, and just kind of ask him all the sorts of stuff. So if you have any questions like that, I'll post something in the Discord server pretty soon. So we're recording this Sunday night, so this will be up Monday. We're gonna be then recording probably tomorrow with him if everything goes according to plan. So I'll probably, maybe before you even see this video, I'll already have a questions thing for you guys to fill out. But if there's anything you want to bring up to him, we can sift through and maybe get a couple of community questions in there as well.
Yeah,
I think with that, that wraps up our overall full day one thoughts, though. It was a very unique day one experience, not necessarily one that I think either of us really expected or wanted, but it's we get what we get, and every team's got to work through it. At the end of the day, congrats. Yeah,
I found a silver lining for myself there, and I think that's important, is to try and just find something, right? Because leaving it completely sour, just kind of, with this being the new raid, no, man, it's gonna suck.
Yeah, it does suck. Like, definitely right now, like, that's kind of how I feel. But I think in maybe like a month's time, I'm gonna review my own footage and my experience of like the day one, because I want to go back to clarify and really see for myself. But I do actually believe that I had a actual pretty like good day one in terms of how I was playing and figuring out mechanics, and I kind of want to see examples where I actually feel like I improved, because I think there are a lot of things that I did this day one versus past, even comparing like the world's first ones, where I actually made a, a bigger impact and helped our team more. So I honestly, I was proud of myself in terms of how that all went down, even though we didn't get the number one. It's like 57 is such a weird number to get. It's like worse than like even some other ones. At the end of the day, like I said, it was weird. We kind of knew by the time we got to Nezarek that it was over, and we were just kind of, maybe not giving full effort. I think if we fully were trying, we're probably somewhere in like the 20 range. But at the end of the day, for me, it's like if I don't get one, then whatever. I'm gonna get the emblem. So
yeah.
Anything you want to close out with, Vandal?
No, I mean, nothing too much. I mean, I had fun playing with my team. I really did. It was the first time I played with that full team. I had a new team going into it.
Yeah, you had a pretty big shakeup compared to your last 2 day ones.
Yeah. And this team I have is pretty damn solid. I mean, I definitely think that I'm sitting cozily in a backpack when I'm playing with them.
That's always good. I mean, you always want to feel like if you need to, you can go in the backpack. For any good team, even the world's first team, you want to have the ability to just kind of sit back and let people take over a little bit and feel like you're still doing things as well as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. But overall, I don't hate the raid.
It'll be fun to farm and get your spoils. This is way better than King's Fall.
Yeah, that's very true. It's arguably a little bit faster. I mean, once they start figuring out certain skips and stuff, jumping puzzles.
Oh, there'll be some crazy. I've already seen some crazy skates.
Yeah, I have to.
It'll be a crazy speed run. Benno and I love watching speed runs.
Yes, it's fun to watch. They're really fun. They're really fun to watch. I'm not gonna do them. I won't ever do them.
I'm not. Like I'll do like a mild speed run.
But yeah, that's not for me or us. But it's really cool to watch.
Been kind of a fan of watching speed runs. Big like I love watching Halo speed runs, for example. That's kind of where my background is. So watching stuff in here, I'm always down. So, and I think it'll be a cool speed run raid. So I'm happy.
Yeah. But maybe next episode, after our interview, we'll talk more about the weapons and stuff from the raid. And,
yeah, for sure. I mean, we can even talk about like overall like sandbox and like how things are changing,
and like strand things. Now that everybody has the fragments, I believe we're getting a new aspect soon.
Yeah, I think it's next season, which is not that far away. Yeah, I think it's in the deep. But I mean, that is it's not that far away, man. It's like,
but with the aspects now, we can chat about kind of what we found to be sort of the really, really good builds with Strand and like things to use and high end and things to use and just kind of casual. We'll talk a little bit about that, and I think Cruz might make a quick little video about that too. Maybe, I don't know.
We'll see.
So yeah, again, leave any questions you have in the Destiny Dugout. We try to respond to everybody. We both have lives too, so please don't get mad at us for not immediately responding.
Sorry, it's fortunate of having a smaller community. There's a lot less burden to feel like you're required to do a lot. But
and I think that's it.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for listening and watching, and we'll see you in the next episode. Take care, guys.
See ya.